Well, what pop culture finance doesn't want you to know about the business of money. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. I do have a line open if you'd like to call in with your questions and/or your comments. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357. 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. There is a section, you know what it is. We talk about it all the time, the Ask Bob section. You can send a question in, and I will get that question answered for you. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Well, let's start out with this 18th of July. Can you believe that? July 18th. This year is just flying by with a little bit of market talk. At one point today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, along with the other two major indices, were up. It was up 350 points, looking like a good day. Everybody was smiling, having a good time. And then Apple had to ruin it. Now, everybody watches what Apple does, and it's either good news or it's bad news. Well, today, Apple announced that they were anticipating an economic downturn, plans to curtail hiring and spending for some time, for some teams next year, according to Bloomberg report, citing people with knowledge of the matter. I also had heard on a separate resource that they were going to be cutting jobs, but this didn't say anything about that. And you also had Apple coming out with that news. You also had Google, who earlier talking about cost reductions and slowing hiring, and then Microsoft, 2 layoff rounds of roughly about 450 people, which is not much considering how big the company is, but still it's 450 people. And this is the kind of things you start to see before a recession sets in, like I said, if it hasn't already started. We won't find that out until the end of the month. I think July the 28th is when that news comes out. But this is the kind of things that we're looking for as we anticipate a potential recession. And we'll talk a little bit more about that for a second. Let's talk to Mike in Dallas. Mike, this is Bob Brooks. Welcome to the Prudent Money. What's on your mind today?
Thanks for having me. I have a question, and I hope it's simple. I'm about to have some money come to me from selling our parents' estate, and it's being split amongst a lot of people. It's not going to be a lot, but I'm wondering, are taxes going to come out of that directly when I get my share, or is that something I'm going to have to pay on the next round of income tax? How does that work?
It depends. What all kind of assets are you getting?
It's just the sale of a home, and it's going to be, a cash or check payment, I guess, coming to me. And it's not a lot. It's, maybe going to be about $60,000.
Well, chances are there probably is not a taxable event to begin with, but generally speaking, when they close out the estate before they distribute the money to the beneficiaries, they take care of tax. The estate takes care of the taxes, unless it's an IRA or something like that. So you should be, just with what little you've told me, I think you should be okay.
Okay, so that's not going to be seen, though, as me having income. I won't be paying income tax on that, or?
No, you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. And of course, the best answer, though, Mike, is to talk to a CPA and let a CPA look at it. But from what you're telling me, you should just be getting the proceeds from the sale of a house. There should not be a taxable event on it. And if there was, it should have been handled by the estate.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I appreciate it.
Okay, Mike, take care. God bless. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Yeah, when the types of assets that you would end up paying taxes on would be something like an IRA, maybe an annuity, not maybe, an annuity, anything that is beneficiary directed that is not settled with inside of the estate. Things like a home, things like land, real estate, that kind of thing that the estate owns with no beneficiaries directed except by the will, then that gets settled by the estate, should get the taxes, should be paid, and then it's all taken care of from there. So once again, never want to be mistaken for giving out specific advice, because there may be something that I don't know, but based on what you're telling me, Mike, you should be in good shape with your tax, with no additional taxes due. 1-877-913-5357 is the number to call, and I do have a line open. What this news today about cutting back, cost cutting, potential layoffs, that sort of thing with Apple, what that means, the best illustration I can give is a lot like a hurricane. We like to use the hurricane example to illustrate what could to illustrate stock markets and crisis and that kind of thing. And it's like the winds are starting to kick up, and it's coming, and it's building, it's starting to build. And that's a lot like this news, because this is what really gets hit hard, is employment and those types of things. So you start to see more and more news about employment. That's why with the news of inflation, a war in Ukraine, supply chain slowdown still a problem, and potential probably a recession, probably one that's already started. That's why I didn't believe at all the government's unemployment report that we had 372,000 new jobs. Makes no sense whatsoever. So we'll continue to watch this and see what happens. 1-877-913-5357. We also had the Builder Sentiment Report, which is really basically all about builder confidence, dropped 12 points to the index total of 55. That marks this largest single month drop in the survey's 37-year history, with the exception of April 2020. Now think about this for just a second. The largest single monthly drop in the survey's 37-year history, and that goes back through the real estate bust in 2008, and with the exception of 1 month, which was April, which absolutely that would be the case, I would think. Think about what was going on in April 2020. Everything was shut down. Absolutely, the builder sentiment would be horrible. And these are the kind of reports that we're getting. Consumer sentiment was the largest drop on record. Not the largest drop on record, the lowest level on record. And that dates back to the 70s. So, you keep getting things like this, and you start thinking, I wonder what's coming around around the corner as far as economic issues. So we'll keep letting you know what's coming out and report on it on Prudent Money. 1-877-913-5357. Well, thought I would do a little piece on pop culture finance and what pop culture finance doesn't want you to know. The reason I wanted to go through this was because this helps to give the other side of the story. What we talk about all the time on the program is that you have really just one side of the story being fed to you, and there's two sides, and the only way that you can come to a good interpretation of how things really work, if something's a good deal, if something's a good investment, whatever it might be, is if you can compare one side to the other side and come up with a reasonable interpretation. When I say pop culture finance, I mean it's the entire group of anybody in the business of money. And I include in there the financial media, Wall Street, the financial services industry. And basically, they all really, if you could sum it up as to what pop culture finance wants you to believe, is that making money is easy, understanding money is easy, and it's just a little bit of information. That's all that you need to make decisions. Well, I would suggest that it's a little bit more difficult than that. But let's start with the first one. The financial media, who is a wealth of information, you have to know, just regurgitates what it hears and accepts it as the absolute truth. Hardly ever does the financial media question what they hear and what they report. Just because an expert says it is right, it must be right. Once again, that goes to the heart of there's two sides to the story. The number two, the pop culture finance and the absolute truths. Now, an absolute truth is something that is absolutely true, it can't be disputed. And pop culture finance has a tendency, as we've talked about this, but I want to bring it up again. Pop culture finance has a tendency to speak in absolute truths, as if what they're saying is without question the way to go. We'll come back in just a minute. 1-877-913-5357. This is Bob Brooks. Stick around. I'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. 1-877-913-5357. I do have a line open, and I would love to hear from you today, whatever is on your mind. We're talking about what pop culture finance probably doesn't want you to know. And we talked about pop culture finance and the absolute truth. And as I've always said, there's only one absolute truth when it comes to money. There are no absolute truths. Let that sink in for a second. There are no absolute truths. There are opinions about how money works. There's an opinions about how things occur. There's no one thing that works every single time. Only given the particular set of circumstances and situation, and being able to watch that play out. And you can have an opinion on it, but only history will tell you who was right or who was wrong. I illustrate it this way. When it comes to money, it's so very complex that 1 plus 2 doesn't always equal 3. Sometimes 1 plus 2 equals 4. Sometimes 1 plus 2 equals 1. Sometimes it does actually equal 3. But money is just not quite as easy as they make it seem to be. Number 3, Wall Street is a sales first, then educate, consult type of business model. There's a big difference between the two business models. Now, to be fair, you can't take make a broad brush statement and say that everybody's like that when it comes to Wall Street. There are a lot of advisors that I think go about it the right way as far as educate and consult first and build a recommendation based on suitability and whether it's the right thing for the client. But there's a lot of people on Wall Street that have a sales first attitude versus a consultant. It's very easy to to figure this out. A sales first attitude is very, very little a discussion at the very beginning and question and answer on a person's situation, really getting to know intimately what's going on, how they feel, what their values are, what their goals are, what their concerns are, what they're doing that's working, what they're doing that's not working, and getting all that information so you can get a really good idea of what makes sense. A sales first attitude is to ask a couple of questions, then jump straight into a product pitch or a presentation on an investment when the advisor doesn't really even know if that is appropriate or not. A consultant educate first is an advisor who spends an enormous amount of time asking questions on the front side and then develops a recommendation based on what makes the most sense for that client. Number 4, let's talk about the annuity business. One thing that you should know about annuities is, of course, that they do have a very questionable reputation. And you have people like Ken Fisher, who's a big money manager, who is, I don't know how much he spends marketing, but he spends a ton of money bashing annuities. That's kind of his gig. And but you got to know that the bad reputation from annuities came as a result of the way the annuity business was going about marketing annuities way back in the mid to late 90s. Back in the mid to late 90s, annuities weren't really getting that much attention because the stock market was going absolutely crazy. It was the beginning of the tech boom, if you'll recall, technology boom. And so what ended up happening is they put together a product that investors would put money into thinking one thing was happening, but really the other was happening. And then when they went to get their money out of the annuity, they found out that they had a really misunderstanding of how it all worked. This got worse and worse and worse into the 2000s, and then lawsuits started being filed against insurance companies. And this product that was called the equity indexed annuity finally went away. And I'll never forget about 2012, 2013, I got a call from a gentleman who was representing annuities, and he wanted to talk to you about it. I said, no way will I ever represent anything like this to my clients because they were horrible products. No, you got to understand they've really changed. He was correct that they had changed up the model, made it a lot more desirable of a product, got rid of all the things that ended up not working out, and then developed what's called a fixed indexed annuity. Now, having said that, what Wall Street doesn't want you to know on this one is that, yeah, they're a much better product. In fact, they're great products for people that it's suitable for. But you also have to know that if you could take every single annuity product and spread it across a conference room table, you could wipe out about 90% of them because they're just really not that good of a product. You got to be real careful getting into annuities because they aren't all great products. Some, in my opinion, are very high expensed, and the way the benefits are structured, there's a better chance that the insurance company is going to come out on top versus the client's going to come out on top. But if you go to the right person that really researches these products and looks at how they're structured, there are some very, very good products, but you got to be careful. A second one, as far as annuities go, and I sent out wrote a blog last Friday about this, that fixed annuities work like CDs, that they work just about the same way CDs work, with a few differences. Have raised their rates and really are competitive now. The one thing, though, that Wall Street doesn't want you to know is that most advisors don't have access to all of the rates across the country, so that you know you're getting the best rate, the fixed rate. So if you're talking to an advisor about a fixed annuity, make sure that you're getting the advantage of he or she showing you products all over the country, so that you know exactly that you're getting the best rate. Number 6, and I take this off of and I wish I had the article. I had the article earlier and I can't remember what I did with it. The gist of this article was, follow the herd, stay in business, never go against the herd. Now, what do I mean by that? And it's somewhat, and this will start to make sense to you. This is kind of how Wall Street is arranged and put together. The herd is the crowd, what everybody's doing. If everybody's piling in the stock market, you pile in the stock market. You never go against the herd, is the advice given to advisors. So whether it's in the best interest of the clients, everybody goes in the stock market, no matter really kind of what's going on, much like we saw last year into the beginning of this year before the bear market started. This one advisor in the article was quoted as saying that it's okay to lose money as long as everybody else is as well. And this is kind of the mentality that goes along with Wall Street, is that, yeah, we're not going to do anything to keep you from losing money, but if you lose money, everybody else is losing money, so you're in good company. I just don't think that's the best way to run a practice, but I thought the guy summed it up in this article pretty well. Speaking of the herd, there's a book that I think everybody should read when it comes to investing. It's called The Art of Contrary Thinking by Humphrey Neal. And actually, I think it's the Contrarian Thinking, but anyway, by Humphrey Neal. And he has a catchphrase from that book that goes like this. It goes, when everybody thinks alike, everyone is likely to be wrong. And there's just so much truth to that. And it's just like last year's was a very good example. Everybody thought the stock market was going to continue to go up, continue to make money. All the predictions for this year were double-digit returns and that kind of thing. And so everybody's piling in the stock market. And at some point, the herd, if you follow the herd, you follow the herd over a cliff. You know what I mean? And but a great, great book, and one that I think everybody should read. Hey, this is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.